What is that noise?
Huh?
There's like a brrrr noise. It just
I
sounds
don't
funny.
think it
It
was.
just scared me. I don't think it was you, but it was funny. Did
Yeah,
you hear it too, Jordan?
Yeah, I heard it. I don't know. It wasn't anything here. It sounded like a cat or some weird stomach or something. Hmm. Is anyone else like exhausted or is it just me?
No, it's me every day. I'm with you.
Okay, perfect.
I'm just like I'm mentally exhausted. Like I'm not actually like I'm physically like I'm sleeping fine at night, but I wake up and I'm just like my brain like just can't take anymore.
Yeah.
And like
That's
after yesterday was rough.
Yeah. I was talking to my mom yesterday and she like didn't understand how there's more work being on.
It's
There
just
would-
more like self-discipline. That's what it is, like to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I was just thinking about the neuro test and how like
Mm.
an hour and a half extra.
Did you so did you think the MLF one was bad?
Yeah.
I didn't understand like it in lectures, so I didn't understand it now.
Yeah, it's something we didn't review there as much as we could have.
No.
I think she thought we understood it. But we didn't actually. So that's where it was kind of.
I'm hoping she sees like our answers and like says to herself, maybe they didn't really understand that. Maybe I'll give them a little more credit than I would have.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like everyone's kind of being like that recently.
Yeah. I mean, I felt fine in every other question except for that one. Well, for the most part, like I felt like solid, but that one I did not feel like anything good about.
Yeah. How is everyone's observation paper going?
I still need to start that. That's my plan.
Yeah, I haven't started either.
That's my plan for after class today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
I broke mine up into many different pieces because 10 pages was not ideal for me. I did it actually over when we had our break because I literally took that long. It took me like a week to write it because I was so broken up with it. Like I was like I couldn't sit down for more than 5 minutes and do it.
Yeah.
I tried to look at it a while ago and I opened it up and then I just closed it.
Mm-hmm.
I think like the hardest part for me was actually starting it, but now I've been like doing a little bit each night, but still.
Well, I like that. I like that we can write the headers and then write underneath. I feel like that will make it less scary to do a 10-page paper.
Exactly.
I like my cat's new bed. It hangs from the window so they can explore cats. Alina, look.
That's so cool.
It's a suction cup bed.
How many pounds does it hold?
50.
Oh, I want one.
I'm sorry, that was me.
No,
Wait,
Alina,
that's
we look on Amazon later.
Shadow, who is it? You see Alina?
I
Oh,
shadow it.
He's gonna take a nappy.
Becca, where did you get
Careful
that?
this thing. I'm worried for your cats, for realsies.
Huh?
I'm actually for realsies worried about your cats. What if it falls?
It's not gonna fall. And the couch is right underneath it.
Oh, okay. Then yeah.
This glare is not working for me today. You guys can just look at Millie. Did you guys know that I love my cats?
No.
Good morning, Grace.
Hello, how are you?
I got 2 cats. Did you see Shadow's new bed?
Yeah, I love it. I like the pictures you posted in our group too. They were so cute yesterday.
I know. My cats are the best.
Grace, are you feeling any better?
Yeah, I honestly don't know what it was. Like, I was feeling okay, like, during that class that I didn't show my face, but I was just, like, really tired and drained, so I, like, was laying down just kind of listening, so I didn't want to, like, look rude and, like, not paying attention. But I, like, the night before, I don't know what it was. I think I might have like ate something or I don't know, but my stomach was just hurting so bad. Originally, I just thought it was like stomach cramps or something, but it literally like woke me up like throughout the night. It was so I don't know what it was, but it was awful.
You know, in the beginning of March, I had like a 1-night stomach bug,
Yeah.
and then it was fine. I was totally fine the next day. Like
Yeah,
it
I
only
don't know.
lasted for like a couple hours.
It was so weird. And then once I like fell asleep, it was probably like almost like 4:30 in the morning or something. I just kept getting up and then I just like slept the rest of the night. And I texted like Sarah and Maggie and them the night before saying if I don't show up, like that's why, and tell Dr. Kunish. But I ended up emailing her and then just telling her that I would just like undo my screen.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Gracie,
Dr. Finch,
yes.
I have something to show you because everyone else got to see it.
Okay.
Look,
Oh my
I got my
gosh.
cat a new bed.
Is that like a cat hammock?
Kind of. It hangs from the window. How much does your dog weigh?
8 pounds.
See, he could use this. This can hold up to 50
He
pounds.
totally could, but he has anxiety, so
Oh.
I don't know.
Maybe he does not want to hang from the window then.
But I have a cat that's 12 pounds that might like it.
Yes.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
We got my another up background today. How's everybody doing? How are you guys all feeling? Are you feeling zoomed out? Like can't do another Zoom session? I'm feeling like that, but here we are doing it anyway. And I'm, feeling like I'm staring at a screen so much. It's driving me crazy, but what are we going to do? So today we do have our very first Zoom article review presentation with Steph and Jordan and Allie. Thank you guys. And then we're going to talk a little bit about cognitive assistive technologies for individuals that have cognitive impairments. And then we're going to do some breakouts for a case study. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit shorter today because I know we're all feeling sort of overwhelmed with sitting in front of screens and that kind of stuff. So a lot of what we're talking about today is not necessarily super new information. It's more organized for a population. So it's a lot of technologies that we've talked about for other reasons, like auditory needs or visual needs or things like that, but it's just thinking about those technologies and from the perspective of using them for individual cognitive issues. So we'll go ahead and let Steph and Allie and Jordan do their presentation for us first. You guys can pull that on up.
Oh, it's not. It says host disabled attendee screen share.
Oh, yep. Sorry. They did that because there was people that were like Zoom bombing open Zoom meetings and then like sharing and like all of a sudden sharing inappropriate things. So, oh, sorry. Let me see how to change that. Hold on 1 second, guys. 2-minute break. There is a way for me to change the setting in the meeting.
So I like arrow near the like whatever, like at the bottom, and then you click on like the little arrow next to it.
Multiple participant advanced sharing options. Let me see.
Yeah, I had to do that yesterday.
There we go. Let's see, did that work?
Yep, it did.
Perfect. Thank you.
Not sure. Oops.
Okay, so our article was called Participation when Using Cognitive Assistive Devices from the Perspective of People with Intellectual Disabilities. So what exactly is a cognitive assistive device? A cognitive assistive device is used by individuals who may physically function typically, but need extra help cognitively to complete their everyday tasks. So the purpose of these devices is to compensate for any cognitive issues an individual struggles with in order to increase their independence when performing certain activities and making decisions within their daily life.
So the cognitive assistive devices, like also known as CADs, that were used in the study, there were 3 different kinds. There was the Handy, the Time Rule, and the Weekly Schedule. So the Handy, they're kind of hard to explain, but there's pictures on the next slide, so just bear with me. So the Handy makes time visual by showing a specific number of dots and then providing a certain countdown until time runs out, which then like it will trigger like a beeping noise to let the individual know that their time's out for whatever activity that they need to do. And shows what to do every day by text and pictures along with synthesized voice that gives the individual information. So it's not only providing visual assistance, but also auditory as well if that individual needs a little extra help. The Time Rule makes time visual the same way as the Handy does. So it basically is copying the exact first bullet that I wrote under the Handy. The Time Rule does the same thing, but it's divided into 4 different selectable time intervals. Then the Weekly Schedule is exactly what it sounds like. It's a plasticized piece of paper that shows the different days of the week in a column form, as well as the hours of each day. And each day is a different color, so it makes it just a little bit easier for the individual to differentiate between the different days of the week and what they need to do for each of those days. And so here are some pictures of the Handy, the Time Rule, and the Weekly Schedule. It still confused me a little bit of what exactly it does with the dots, but this is the pictures they provided to us in the article. So quickly, we're going to stop for a question, and anyone can just unmute yourself and let us know. Does anyone currently use any form of cognitive assistive devices, like a weekly planner? And I know you all do, so unmute yourself. And if so, do you think it helps you at all?
For sure. Personally, she's right here. Got it out on my desk at all times. I wouldn't have made it this far in school if I didn't have a planner. Just because everything, especially like now, we have so many different things due at so many different times. So having that place to remind us where everything is and just being able to look at it and getting that nice like visual sense of, oh, I have 2 weeks to do this. I have 2 days to do this. Nice.
Agreed. Do you guys think that since transferring online, this is kind of just a question that came up in my mind right now, is it making it harder? Because I know my planner is already filled out to the end of the semester, and now everything's kind of changed, so it made it really stressful. Has anyone else kind of experienced that too, or no?
Yes, I have this now. So now I use like a calendar thing, and I kind of just like rewrote everything that was due. And like in different colors and all that jazz too, so I could just figure out like what class is what and what day, and it's really helpful.
I'm on the same thing with Jeannie. I like loved my old planner that I had for the school year, and I wrote everything in it. It was super neat and organized, and I used it every day. And then because I had things already written in it, it stressed me out even more that now that it was wrong. So I ended up getting like a big thing that's hanging on my wall, like one of the desk calendars, and I did that in different colors so I know. And then I didn't buy a new like actual planner like book, but I just got like a small notebook, and every week I write like this week and then what's due that week, and then it's kind of like split into 2, so then I'll put what's like upcoming, so that helps instead of having my old planner.
For sure. Okay, awesome. We're gonna move on. So what was the problem that the why am I forgetting the word? The researchers were trying to figure out, sorry. The problem being addressed is how cognitive assistive devices affect participation in everyday activities of individuals with intellectual disabilities. And then the hypothesis, which was later backed up by its findings, which Allie will talk about, is if implementing the use of cognitive assistive devices into the daily lives of individuals with cognitive impairments will increase their overall participation in their daily activities. So the participants were 9 individuals. There was 2 men and 7 women between the ages of 17 and 37 that were selected. The individuals were selected by purposive sampling. I'd never really heard of what that was, so I looked it up, and it was a non-probability form of sampling where the researchers will rely on their own judgment when picking participations for the study. And each person had a mild intellectual disability and was able to verbally communicate and was given the CAD within the last 2 years. The 4 participants lived with their parents. 4 participants lived in their own apartments with outside support from staff, and 1 lived completely independent in an apartment. And 5 of those participants worked at a daily activity center, 2 were at school, and 2 were still waiting on a job.
Okay, so how did the researchers collect the data? So the data was collected through open-ended questions in a one-time interview. So the questions were organized in a logical time perspective to get an idea of the participants' experience over time with the CAD. So questions about the present included them describing their own personal CAD and explaining what they do if they need help with their CAD. Questions about the past included describing life before using the CAD. And then questions about the future included describing their opinion on using the CAD in the future. And then finally, they were asked to demonstrate how their CAD works. So the length of the interview ranged between 34 to 60 minutes, and it was conducted at a place and time convenient to the participant. So you can go to the next slide, Jordan. Okay. So how did the researchers analyze their data? So the research was qualitative because they wanted to describe the experiences of the CAD in daily activities. So they did like a 4-step analysis. So all the interviews were read, and then brief notes were created. And then meeting units were derived from the brief notes. Then 4 themes were derived from the meeting units. And then finally, 12 categories total were identified from the 4 themes. So if you look at the chart below, you can see the 4 themes across the top, and then the 12 categories are underneath them. And I'm going to talk about that in more detail when I go through the results. So Jordan, you can go to the next slide. Okay. So the results of the research, so I split it into the 4 themes, and each theme kind of highlights the positives and the negatives the participants experienced when they used their CAD. So the first theme was the usefulness of CAD, and this was kind of a positive theme. So the CAD would send reminders, it would provide an overview of a user's activities each day. One quote was, "It's good to get an overview, and then it won't be such a mess in my head." It allowed them to initiate activities. It allocates time for each activity and informs how much time is left. And it also helps with money management. So just overall, all of the things that the CAD does really allows the users to participate more in activities that they want and need to do. And then finally, the last thing in this theme was the future use of CAD. So half the participants said that they can't live without it, and the other half were hoping that as they got older that they would no longer need it. So the next theme was patterns of activities. So the participants either engaged in an equal or decreased amount of activities with the use of the CAD. If they engaged in a decreased amount, it was because the CAD created a better balance between activity and rest. And then one other thing they talked about is how participants would add new features to their CADs, like memory lists for shopping, listening to music to increase concentration at work, and then overall just figuring out how to charge it and generally work it. So Jordan, you can go to the next slide. Okay, and then the next theme was effect on health and roles. So this was really another really positive aspect of the CAD. So the CAD gave increased participation and control leading to health benefits. So one quote was, "Before I got a little nervous and distracted and things like that and had a stomach ache." And then it also facilitated independence and an adult role. So the CAD just really allowed them to make independent decisions and initiate activities without being prompted by another person. And then finally, the last theme was social barriers. So this is one of the more negative aspects of them using the CAD. So they noticed barriers with staff members. So they would discard previously laid out schedules And then they would also restrict work info from being put into the CAD. And both of these can be really stressful, especially if the person needs the CAD to understand their schedule. And then finally, they also had barriers with their family and friends. So a lot of them had a fear of irritating or disturbing other people because it peeps a lot and it makes a lot of noise. And then they also felt like they couldn't use the CAD in public unless they could independently manage it.
Okay, so the author's conclusions, they found that using the CADs increased the participation of the clients and led to an increase in health benefits. They also found that it was important for OTs to continuously follow up with the participants' use of the CAD, as their attitude and environment can affect the use of it. And then the use of the CAD is also important for individuals with disabilities due to their dependence on physical and environmental circumstances. So then what did we learn?
So what I learned is that simple technology can greatly increase the client's ability to engage in occupations. So for example, one of the pieces of equipment was like the weekly schedule, and that's just a really simple thing that helped them a lot. And it just stresses the point of always look at simple technology before looking at more complex technology. And then the other thing I learned was just the importance of identifying social barriers. So as a therapist, even if you think that a solution is going to work for a client, you need to consider how they're going to feel when they go out into society with that piece of technology.
So what I learned is that adaptive equipment will affect a client's ability to engage in occupations differently depending on their lifestyle. So two people could have the same type of adaptive equipment, but it's going to work differently based on their lifestyle. So like I could have a weekly planner that works for me, but like if Jess used the same weekly planner, it might work differently for her.
And then going off of what Steph said, I said if more than one client uses the same like adaptive equipment device, in this case, a cognitive assistive device, that doesn't mean that it will be used in the same way. So that can I kind of took this and thought of adaptive equipment in general. And if you working with a client and you give them one piece of adaptive equipment, and then you give another client the same piece of adaptive equipment, you can't expect them to act the same way with it or want to do the same thing with it, use it the same way. So you just need to be adaptable in that sense.
So then we just have a couple more questions for you guys. What is one frame of reference an OT would use when assessing and choosing the proper cognitive assistive device for a client?
And then you guys can probably either unmute, or if you don't want to talk, you could also put it in the chat.
I feel like they could use Moho to see like which one they're motivated by and to see like which style of CAD would fit like their own like performance capacity or whatever. So yeah.
That's really good. Anyone else have another opinion, or if not, we can just move on to the second.
I think that you could definitely use developmental, because like if they're older, you don't want to be giving them this huge technology thing unless that's what they're interested in most cases. Or like if you have a child, you might want something more simplified for their understanding also.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about how obviously you're gonna like focus on like cognitively what they need help with. But I was also thinking like looking at behavioral, maybe depending on the client, and then also some sensory stuff, because they talked about listening to music and all that stuff throughout the study.
Okay, so our next question is, if a client refused to use a specific cognitive assistive device, what are other ways you could work on strengthening cognitive skills such as time management and memory in the clinic setting?
Okay, so Jenna said memory games based on their interests, if developmentally appropriate.
Anyone else have any ideas?
It's okay. Don't be afraid to say it.
Maybe for time management, like at the beginning of the session, you could like introduce the activities that you have planned and then like have the client help you plan out how much to do if developmentally appropriate. So that way they could like get a taste of how to coordinate the activity and time and like their goals.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
So the level of evidence, we said that it was a qualitative group study with less rigor. So in the article, it told us that it was qualitative, but we said the less rigor because of the small size of the people that were in the study. So we said that since there's only 9 people, it really wasn't a lot of people to make it more rigor, which is why we went with the less rigor. And then our references.
Thank you, guys. Does anybody have any questions for our presenters? Good. So just a couple of things so you said in the beginning about the time management device that has the dots on it, just to explain that a little bit further. So it's just a very sort of simplified way for somebody that maybe doesn't understand, like using a clock, even like a digital clock, like using the numbers and having an understanding of you have this much time and then how time is, passing by and getting less and less. So those dots represent a certain amount of time. So if you have like 10 dots, let's say it represents 10 minutes. So when one dot disappears, then you have only 9 dots left, and then 8. So it's sort of a very simplified way of showing how the time is passing by and then how you have less and less time. And so this is just from a research perspective for you guys, this is a really great example of a qualitative study with semi-structured interviews, just like you guys said. Really goes through very nicely the method of semi-structured interviews and then analyzing the information that you get from the interviews and then developing themes and categories from those. So a lot of students, next year when you're thinking about your research, a lot of the research studies do end up being sort of qualitative focus with semi-structured interviews. So this is just a really good introduction to that. And I love the questions with the frames of references and the theories. Very much appreciated. So I'm just going to pull up the PowerPoint for today. It is on Moodle. We'll talk about this cognitive assistive. So in your textbook and in some literature that you read, you'll hear the term cognitive assistive technology. So in this article, they say cognitive assistive devices. Sometimes you might hear cognitive assistive technology or CAT, which is what they talk about in your textbook. So just really quickly, who are we talking about? What populations are we typically working with as occupational therapists when we're looking at cognitive assistive technologies? People with congenital disabilities, like individuals with learning disabilities. Typically, this will be in a school setting with students that have learning disabilities. You may, be in a setting where you're working with adults with learning disabilities who, are having difficulties in their personal life or their work life because of their learning disabilities. Obviously, individuals with intellectual disabilities, ADHD, and individuals with autism. And these are just some of the more common examples, not all encompassing. And then, of course, people with acquired disabilities. So, for example, somebody with who has developed dementia, who's experienced a traumatic brain injury or a stroke and now are experiencing cognitive difficulties because of those events that have happened to them or those diagnoses. And just a really quick review, remember, thinking about the framework and, those global mental skills and the specific mental skills or functions. So just to bring you back to those skills that we are talking about when we're talking about cognitive skill challenges. So challenges in perception or understanding the sensory information in your environment that's coming in and how you perceive that information, paying attention, and selecting the appropriate things to pay attention to in your environment, remembering what you need to do or remembering things that have happened, formulating ideas, problem solving through activities and events in your life, and when something doesn't go the way that you expect it to go, organizing, sequencing, and then of course the very basic sort of cognitive function of orientation, knowing who you are, where you are, in time orientation, what's the day, the month, the year, all those kinds of things. Again, not all encompassing, but just a quick review of some of the cognitive skills that we're talking about here that these devices can help with. So your textbook does a really nice job of going through and specifying the characteristics of cognitive assistive technologies to help you understand a little bit better what those devices are doing for people, and so to help you make decisions about what type of device or what type of assistive technology you might be choosing for your clients. For instance, there are technologies that are geared towards alerting somebody of something. So basically it's drawing attention to stimulus in that person's external environment or in their internal environment. So an alerting device could be, very simply like your notification on your phone that sends you a reminder. It says you have a Zoom meeting in a couple of minutes. Or it could be something for your internal environment. So that would be something that would help somebody pay attention. So you can have a cognitive assistive device that sends a notification to somebody every, couple of minutes, says, are you paying attention? Do you know what you're supposed to be doing right now? Right? What is it you're supposed to be focusing on? So that's what that means about internal environment. And then there's reminding, which I just gave the example of reminding for Zoom. So yeah, that's more specific of reminding. So it's a one-way, time-dependent about something not in the immediate environment, right? So it's not necessarily about what's happening right now, which is what the alerting is more about. Reminding is something to say something is coming up, not right immediately, but it's coming up soon in your environment. Micro prompting. So this is a device or technology that will help somebody go through steps of an activity or steps of a task. So it's prompting the person through whatever the activity is that they need to do. So if you're working on somebody independently doing their laundry, right, is there a way that you can use assistive technology, low tech or high tech, that sort of prompts them through the steps of how to complete that task of laundry? Then there's storing and displaying, right? Storing information, typically episodic memories. Well, those episodic memories are things that have happened in your life, or then displaying those memories. So I use my camera. Has anybody used their camera on their phone to capture things? So if there's something that you want to remember, you take a picture of it. And then you can take a look at it later, right? So that would be an example of storing and displaying. So then you can go back in your pictures and be like, oh yeah, that's what it was that I needed. And then finally, distracting. So there is some low tech and high tech technology out there that helps distract people. This might be some like that mindfulness technology that helps people through stress and, sort of anxiety provoking. So, for example, this might be somebody, experiencing that has a diagnosis of autism, right? And it's, very stressful when they're in a chaotic, busy environment, right? Is there some kind of technology or something that helps them work through and distract them from the disorganized environment and decrease their stress and their anxiety? So really quickly, just going to go through some of the examples of cognitive aids or cognitive devices or cognitive technology. Of course, there's very low tech cognitive aids. Now we've seen these pictures before, right? And we'll see them again when we talk about augmentative communication. So visuals like this are very helpful for people for multiple reasons. And specifically, we're talking about it today for from the cognitive standpoint, right? So labeling things for people so they understand, places or people, or they understand where things are in their environment. So like if you're labeling a cupboard that says, here's the plates, you could be doing that for a cognitive reason, right? To help remind that person where something is located in their environment. You can use these pictures as visual schedules. Again, and this could be from a cognitive standpoint. And that's the example at the bottom of the slide here. And this is sort of like the morning routine for somebody, right? So that's a sequencing, sort of prompting them through their morning routine, right? You're sleeping, and then the next thing happens is that your alarm goes off and you wake up, right? And when that happens, then you get up and you get out of bed, and then you go and you eat breakfast and brush your teeth. So it's just sort of prompting them through the things that, that the steps that they need to take. So a lot of different reasons. I did grab some, so I do have, I don't know if I have to look at my camera because I know it's the virtual background. Sometimes it's hard to see what I'm holding up. So hold on a second. Let me get rid of that background. So I did grab some of these before we had to leave campus. This is something that we would have been doing in lab, but so here's an example of sort of a visual schedule like you see, and this is with Velcro. So we have the pictures, and what I have on here is sort of a morning routine. Like first you use the bathroom, then you eat breakfast, and then you go take a shower or something like that. And with the Velcro, when somebody completes that step, then they can remove it, right? So when they go back, they remember, they say, oh, wait, did I go to the bathroom? Was that, usually that's a step, and they look and they say, oh, that I already did that, and now this is what the next step is. The important thing to talk about at this point is people's level of understanding of what those pictures mean. And Jeannie, you say you use the Velcro in your summer job. You want to tell us a little bit about when you use Velcro in your summer job?
Yeah, so I work at a preschool program, and we do the same thing you were talking about. So we only have 2 boxes though, since they're a little bit younger. So we have like, first we're here, so we'll be at like the play area, and then when we're done playing, we'll go to like circle time, they call it. So then we'll have everyone gather around, and like everyone where we're going next. And same thing, she'll take it off and she'll put it in like the little Ziploc. They have it connected to like a Ziploc bag. And then once we're at circle, she'll put that one on where we are, and then she'll put the one on for the next time too. So it's the same deal. Pretty cool.
So yeah, you might, if in your experience, if you're in a school setting, even in typically developing classrooms like preschool classrooms, especially younger kids, might use something like this, a nice visual schedule for them to, so you're giving them the information of what's happening in multiple ways. So you're telling them what's happening, and then you're giving them that visual cue of this is what's happening next, right? So they, it's easier for them to understand sort of what the routine is, what they've already done, and what they're expected to do next. So even, from a learning standpoint and sort of a behavioral management standpoint of a class too, right? Like, so everybody is sort of on the same page. And Molly says, yeah, when you were Mary Carriola.
I have a story too. The one observation I did, I think it might have been freshman year, maybe some other time, but they used one of them too. But what I thought was nice is that the OT that was working with the kid, she had everything that she wanted to do planned out, but she made sure to leave a square open so that her like client or the kid doing it could kind of have a say in something that they were doing that day. So she had like this, a blank spot, and then one like final thing that she needed to do with them, but allowed him to kind of make a decision too and what he wanted to do that day. So I thought that was good, kind of, because that's more of like a motivator for him to get to whatever he wants to do and get the other stuff done.
Yeah, absolutely. Gives him a little bit of control over this in the session, gives him some like sort of like a free choice. And it's also sort of a reinforcement or motivator for, you've done these things for me, great work. Now you get to choose, right? And do something. So here's your reinforcement. And so Molly, do you want to tell us about when you were at Mary Cariola, what you saw?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've actually, if I remember right, I've seen it at Mary Cariola and at Holy Childhood.
Yeah.
My different observation there. All the therapists in the classrooms, they either had it on the door and each student had the name, and it was just their entire day schedule for what they would do. And then when they would go to PT or OT, they would either take it off and put it in a bin, or they would like move where things were and like have the kid watch. So it was really helpful for them to be like, oh, this is the next step that we're doing. So
yeah, right. And again, it's sort of using multiple sort of sensory input for the person to help them understand very sort of concretely what has happened, what's happening next, and what has already what you've already done, and sort of that sequence of the things that are going to happen. So it really helps them be prepared for the transition, all right, and know what's going to be happening next. So, and again, this is a good time to talk about, when you are working with individuals that have cognitive issues, that you have to, really be very mindful of, do they understand what the pictures mean, right? So we can look at these pictures and say, oh yeah, I can read it. It says wake up, and it looks like a picture of somebody waking up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the person that you're working with understands what that picture is trying to tell them. Right? Or that they're really associating with the activity that you think that it is associated with. So just really, be very mindful of that. And I don't know, Molly, if you remember seeing at Mary Cariola or at Holy Childhood, that the very first step, especially with younger kiddos, when you're using pictures like this, is to have like the ones that I have are very small, but you have your little Velcro plastic, or what am I trying to say? No, what's the word? When you laminate, that's the word. Laminated square here, and they start out with the actual object, right? So if somebody is going or something that's associated with the object. Like, so let's say at Mary Cariola, the child is going to OT, they might have something on here that the child uses in OT, like if it's a ball or a block or part of the mat, like some of the squares that they have has actually part of the mats of the floor on OT. So they're just associating that physical, actual environmental piece to the square. And then they'll add a picture to it, right? So then they start associating the picture, and then they can take away the actual physical part. And now, so they're sort of teaching the child what that picture means before they just give them the picture and say, and expect them to understand what it means. So there is a process, right, to sort of educating or teaching or training, whatever word you want to use, the individual and what those pictures mean. So, we've talked already a lot about, reasons to be able to use pictures and labels. We talked about them, from a visual standpoint, also for a cognitive standpoint, for somebody to organize their environment or understand where things are, using, recipes with, pictures or highlights or simplifying directions. Again, these are all just, sort of going through with some ideas, not all encompassing, but, some ideas of, how you can use low tech cognitive aids. Now, we talked about painting doors, door trims, contrasting colors and things like that for visual needs, right? To alert somebody from a visual sense that maybe they don't, have really good ability to see the contrast from a visual perspective, but you can also use bright contrast from a cognitive perspective. So it alerts that person's and draws their attention, right, to, where the you know, the change in the trim of the floor is, or where the change in the steps are, or where, you know, where is the toilet in the bathroom. So you can do it from a cognitive perspective for that. You know, you're sort of just saying like, hey, pay more attention to this than, you know, the rest of the environment. Yeah. So you know, same thing. A lot of the same, you know, visual sort of ideas that we talked about. Again, you can use from a, you know, somebody that's having issues with cognitive skills, because you're really highlighting or alerting them to what it is that you want them to pay attention to in their environment. Simplifying things this we can do to reduce distractibility. Right. So if somebody, you know, wants to be able to make coffee on their own, you know, maybe you're looking for just a very simple coffee maker where they, you know, put the coffee filter in, put the coffee in, water, and then they push a button and that's it, versus like a huge, like espresso maker that does a million different things. You've seen this before, right? Again, decreasing distractibility, partitions, I'm sure you've seen. Noise canceling headphones, you guys know those. Guided access, we've talked about, right? Decreasing even from a software perspective or computer perspective, or whatever electronic device the person is using, even decreasing the distractibility or improving the organization of, you know, what they're looking at on their electronic devices. Recording devices, remember we talked about recording devices for people, again, from a visual perspective, so that recording device would tell them what it is that they're looking at because they can't see it. Same, you know, your same devices, but you might be using them for a different reason, right? For somebody that has a cognitive issue and that, you know, needs a reminder, or that can't remember either where things are, or, you know, one of the most common examples that we, you know, probably talk about or use with our clients is electronic medication reminders, right? So we do spend a lot of time with clients, especially if you're working in an adult setting, and that clients that have issues with cognitive skills is on their medication management, because it's a huge safety issue. It's a huge health issue and a safety issue. You know, so there's a lot of different ways that you can use very low tech cognitive assistive technology, all the way up to very high tech, to help people manage their medications in a safe way. So Pillbox, just a very simple pill box that organizes their pills. You know, you've seen them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way through, all the way up to like a locked, alarmed medication dispensing device that somebody else fills, and that it you know, sends a notification, like an alarm sound, and the drawer opens, and it only opens for a certain amount of time, and, you know, telling the person it's time to take your time to take your meds, and it only stays open for a certain amount of time. And then when it closes, and if the pills are still in there, it will contact somebody, whoever, you know, is that they decide that should be contacted. It will contact somebody and say, this person did not take their medication, the pills are still in here. And then I think I might have told you guys about the smartphone app. A couple months ago when I was in the children's hospital, there was a teenager there with a cardiac defect, and he had all sorts of surgeries throughout his life. And he had very, very complicated, you know, medication lists and medications that he had to keep track of. And he had a smartphone app where, you know, he worked with his physician, and they put in all the meds that he was supposed to be taking, when he was supposed to be taking, and how much. And the app would alert him each time, it's time to take this medicine, and this is how much you take. That kind of stuff was really cool. The talking pen, again, we talked about that from a visual standpoint. Certainly can use it for from a cognitive perspective. So, right, these are pens that sort of record maybe what you're writing, or you can use them, use it as a label. So you label something, and the pen remembers and records what that label is, and then the person can go back and place the pen on the label, and it'll read the label for the person. So quick reminders. So, we all have reminders that we use on our phone, so sort of, from your calendar and appointments and, your to-do lists and things like this. The quick reminders is sort of a step up from that. So you can really customize reminders, and you can even go all the way up to like guided tasks where you can create custom steps with alerts for people to sort of stay on track with what they're doing. So you can have a reminder where it says, now it's time to make lunch. And then you can go even further with the reminder where it goes through custom prompts for that person to say, now it's time to make lunch, go to the refrigerator, take this out, and, maybe go through the steps of making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something like that. So it's just a bit higher level of sort of using the basic reminders like we all use with our phones. We all know, like on our iPhone, right, we have a car locator app. You can, for those people that don't have iPhones, you can download apps onto your phone that will locate your car for you and tell you how to get back. This is a watch minder. Again, same thing, that it can go through and give you reminders and give you customized prompts. This is a good example of, using this watch. You can use it for somebody that needs cues or like that alerting characteristic to say, remember, pay attention, and you can set it, for whatever amount of time, like every 20 minutes, every 10 minutes. It just sends this, sort of alert and says, are you paying attention? Make sure, what is it that you're supposed to be doing right now? And of course, Apple Watch. I know a lot of you have an Apple Watch, and there's, a lot of these features that you can use on Apple Watch too. Hasn't necessarily gotten to the point where you can really customize things, but Apple, like I have said all along, Apple is sort of the leader for accessibility. Apple Watch also has some really nice sort of medical features where it monitors your heart rate. It can monitor sort of your movement. It monitors if somebody has fallen, and then you can set it to contact somebody if it'll say, like it seems like that you've fallen. Are you okay? And if you don't respond, then it'll call somebody. My aunt in Florida, who she's almost 80 now, and she has multiple sclerosis, and her daughter bought her an Apple Watch and has all of those things set up for her because she has had multiple falls in the past. And then here's just some more safety ideas, right? Alarms that alert you when your oven stays on or your stovetop. You can have automatic shutoffs, special valves for showers. And then we talked about this when we were doing the home and dorm assessment about, water getting too hot and temperature gauges and things like that. So you can do it from a sensation perspective. So if somebody has loss of sensation, right? If they've had a stroke or spinal cord injury or something like that, right? You want to keep them safe because they can't feel how hot it is, but you also might use these devices from a cognitive perspective if somebody doesn't really understand, what could happen if the water gets too hot. I have from the hospital before recommended that people, if somebody is going to go home, that somebody goes and unplugs, right? If it's an electrical stove, or turns off the stove, or removes the knobs on the stove, because I felt that they would be too unsafe cooking. There's just a lot of different which is not an assistive technology. At that point, it's really just from a safety perspective and saying that that person should not be cooking unless they're supervised. So more safety ideas, and you guys can take a look at this, that kind of stuff. Again, more examples. So I wanted to take a couple minutes and just talk a little bit about home monitoring. So these will be for individuals who, that we would be really worried about, that might sort of be those, somebody that wanders. And this could be, you know, somebody from, you know, typically we're talking about like the elderly population, maybe somebody who has dementia, you know, and you're sort of worried about their safety, sort of, you know, those vulnerable adults. You know, we get these alerts of, you know, missing vulnerable adults, and how do we, you know, help people that are, you know, wandering from a cognitive perspective, but still sort of maintain like as much independence and respect as we can. So this is where, you know, I like to ask students, and this is sort of a controversial question, and there is no right or wrong, but do you think, and just take a minute to think about this and we'll all have a discussion, do you think it's okay to lock a person in their bedroom if they, for their safety, if you're concerned about them wandering at night and getting lost? And I'll just do a stop share. Anybody want to be brave and say what they think?
I think that there are definitely different alternatives to that, but like maybe like set up something that makes a sound when they walk out the door, but then like then you can't sleep. But I think that could be like a last resort kind of thing, but there are definitely other things that you can do before that, but I don't think it's wrong if it's for the right reason and it's like appropriate.
Okay.
I know from personal experience, my grandmother, when she was still living at home, she has Alzheimer's, and when my grandfather tried to install like it would make a beep and like even send something to his watch to let him know that the doors have been opened or something like that. But if, you know, he didn't wake up or something like that, like they live in Syracuse, like we're all pretty far away from them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would have come to that. She never ended up having to be, you know, locked in the bedroom or anything like that. But like we hid the keys, like we hid the car keys, all that kind of stuff. So eventually it ended up just having to be move them to like where they can have 24-hour care, like a nursing home. So
yeah.
Yeah, kind of like going off that. I work at a group home, and there's one individual who does wander, and we have like at night he has like a doorbell type thing,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll ring if he has to get up or anything, and we'll know that he's up and we'll like go help him. But also all the doors are locked, and because there's people there 24/7, we're always like making sure that he doesn't wander.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's more like controlled in that sense. But
yeah. Anybody else have an opinion?
I would say as long as I think they had like a way to alert for like in case of emergency or something in their room, I don't think it would be that big of a deal, especially if it is for their safety, because if I think in a lot of cases, if they are wandering around, they could end up getting hurt or something could happen. So as long as like, at the same time, you don't want to be putting them at risk by like, if they had a way to alert that they needed to get out for whatever reason, then that would be all right.
Yeah.
I think that if it's in a case where someone's trying to stay at home for as long as possible and they need to be locked in, like another consideration is to make sure that like if it's in their bedroom or wherever, just to make sure that they also have a bathroom or something, because say they need to get out to go to the bathroom and you don't realize you're sleeping or whatever, obviously you don't want anything like that to happen. But also if they are staying home for the person living with them as well, it's hard to stay up throughout the night and things like that. So I feel like as long as they have the necessities they need, and then if there ever is an emergency and like if there ever is like a fire or something, the person that's also living there has to be like super aware that they will not be able to get out. So like no matter what, like also think of them as a priority as well, because if that's your decision to kind of lock them into a room, you're going to have to make different sacrifices kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good point. You know, all of you had very good points. And again, like I said, there's no right or wrong answers. You know, no, it's not certainly black and white. There's a lot of different variables to making those decisions. But one of the biggest things is, right, so you're taking that person's decision away and you're locking them in. And so if there was an emergency situation, then that person would not be able to get out. So like if there was a fire, they would not be able to get out. And then if the other person in the house can't get to them, then you've really sort of doomed them, right? So at that point, so it really, certainly, like you said, Abigail, there's a lot of other, things. And I think, Chloe talked about a little bit too, a lot of other things that can be put in place before it gets to that point. And then, so then the question is now, and people have certainly done this in the past for safety reasons and when they've gotten it as a last resort. But now at this point in society, we do also have other resources for people where, can they go somewhere where there is staff that, can monitor them 24 hours a day. Because you can't expect a caregiver to monitor somebody 24 hours a day. They also have to sleep, right? So for, to expect one person to monitor another person and stay awake 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's, that's not going to happen. So Jeannie asked Chloe, is there a doorbell in that gentleman's room? Yeah, so
yes, there is.
Okay.
It's like next to his bed, so like at night if he has to use the restroom, he'll ring it and then he'll get up and we'll know to like go back there, check on him, make sure he's good. And he's really good about it, so
good. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so there are, lots of different devices and technologies, to use for, people to be monitored at home. Let's see, right? So there's even this sort of just checking in, right? So it, alerts to, is the person moving around, right? So it, it's a motion sensor, and, did the person get up? Are they moving around the house? And it gives you sort of an idea of what their movements are and what rooms they've been in and what they've been doing. So it's it's sort of a remote way for maybe family members to sort of monitor how somebody is doing that's living alone. And, obviously if you through this monitor, if you see that this person hasn't been moving, it's like 11 o'clock in the morning and usually they're up by 7 and they haven't been moving yet, that can alert you too that there is a problem, there is an issue, and that somebody can check on them. So that's just more information on that. And that's some, again, alerting people. You can have, again, very bold sort of visual cues for people. Stop, you don't go through this door. There's monitors, anti-wandering alarms, like if somebody gets close to the door to leave, then an alarm will go off, or if they step on a pressure pad by the door, and an alarm will go off and alert somebody. And of course, there's, medic alert or, GPS systems that people can wear. And so if somebody does get lost or somebody does wander, then, that's there for to help be able to find that person. Smart Soul is a GPS that goes into somebody's shoe. So my nephew, this is, I'll go forward a little bit. We know this. Google Maps and GPS helps people. There's a Wayfinder app. So there is an Avante's law, right? So this is federal money that can be used. So it's it's like a grant that people can use for children with developmental disorders. So like my nephew who has autism is they call a bolter. He's not just a wanderer, like he bolts, and he runs super quickly. And now that he's a teenager, it's really hard to catch him because he's super fast. So my brother and sister-in-law did use some money through Avante's law to have a GPS device that he wears all the time, just in case that he does get away. And as you may, I don't know if you talked about autism, and if you talked about that for some reason, and we don't really know why, a lot of individuals that have autism are very much drawn to water. So there's just a huge safety risk for individuals. When he was young, he did bolt one time out of the house, and when my sister-in-law finally found him, he was in the neighbor's pool. And luckily she found him quickly and was able to pull him out, but it's a huge safety risk. So they really need to know where he is at all times in case something like that happens again. And so I don't want to go through too much more of these. Again, these are more of these prompting apps or prompting devices that sort of go through and prompt somebody through something specific, right? Like a specific task, or this brain aid is very much specified to helping people like prompt them through what they need, or helping them problem solve through something that they are doing in their day. So what I wanted to do, let me see what else is there. Oh yeah, and then the social strategy. So there's social stories. Even people use Siri to help individuals learn sort of social skills. Like talking to Siri is much easier. Sort of a scaffolding versus talking to an actual person. So it's a good way for somebody to practice social skills using an AI device like Siri or Alexa or something like that. And then, trying to use those skills when they're talking to actual people. Okay, so we know these word prediction, again, some more examples. Oh, and just quickly, I just wanted to, we all know self-driving cars are coming up. You guys didn't ask about self-driving cars. Usually there's a question about self-driving cars when Beth comes from Drive On. And, there are cars now that have some self-driving features, but, we're not quite yet to a totally autonomous car. They're still saying it's, a few years away. But, we do believe that this sort of is the future of driving and driver's rehab as, sort of this autonomous self-driving car. Okay, so any questions about that kind of stuff? Cognitive assisted devices or technologies. Like I said, it's really sort of just an overview of a lot of things we've already talked about, but how, using them and thinking about using them from the perspective of somebody that has cognitive impairments. Okay, so we're just going to take the last couple minutes and I'm just going to go through quick and let's see, we'll go into some breakout rooms and and just take a look at this case study is really what I want to do. So I'm going to invite you guys in just a minute or two to your breakout rooms, and you can take a look at the case study and the questions within the case study. So Abigail, Alexis. Just give me 1 minute. Almost there, one more. Okay, so I'm going to invite you guys to the rooms, and you guys can head to your rooms and start taking a look at the case study, and we'll just talk about it for about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll pop back and have a quick wrap up. How's it going, guys?
It's good.
Any questions or anything I can help you with?
We just suggested maybe like a watch for him to wear that would continuously remind him, since he is like up and moving.
Yeah.
I feel like because it's small and it's like on his wrist, it would be easier.
Yeah, I like it. All right, I'll be back. I'm gonna check on other people.
Like if you were to walk to a certain room, it'd say it and remind
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's what I was
Hello.
thinking around.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
You could even have like a schedule that like, or not like schedule, but like this is how it should look, and then like
Yeah.
at this time this should be done, at this time this should be done, and then maybe like
Yeah.
connecting it to the watch. Like, are you done with that activity? Is that part done? Is the fork set? Are the knives set? Like, kind of like a visual, and then also like tactile.
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, good. Any questions or anything I can help you guys with? Sounds like you guys had some good ideas.
Oh, I had a question.
Sure.
For the Q card app, is that so it gives you reminders throughout a prolonged task? Is that just on like an iPhone?
Yeah, so I mean, it's an app, so you could download it to, you know, I would imagine iOS or iPhone or Android.
Okay, so like any smartphone.
Yeah, most smartphones. Yeah, there are some that aren't even Android or iOS, but yeah, most of the smartphones that people have. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna check on some others, but if you guys are done, you can come on back.
Okay.
Hi, guys. Any questions or anything that I can answer for you?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
What were you guys thinking for our buddy?
We're kind of just talking about like something simple, even like some sort of like checklist, maybe with like not cartoon pictures, but like real pictures of like how the dining stuff would be set up, and then he can just go through so he knows like the sequencing of what he has to do, and he can maybe do some sort of thing to like cross out each one or like cover them as he goes, so he doesn't forget where he is. But
yeah, I
something
like
really
it.
simple like that.
Yeah, I like simple ideas. So maybe even something that's laminated, and then he could use like a wipe off marker, right? So then he can use it each day and then just like cross it off when he's done, and then they can clean it for the next day, something like that. Cool. Good.
Yeah.
All right, I'll see you in the main room.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. We came up with a solution that we felt would be beneficial in many aspects.
Awesome. What do you got?
So we're thinking a kind of like laminated poster type of thing that has step-by-step instructions so that he can use like a dry erase marker to check off each step as he does it, because that'll increase like his feeling of independence, and it'll also let him say, oh, I finished this step, on to the next one, finish this.
Yeah, I like it, and I like the simplified idea. You know, like nothing too crazy. Yeah, perfect. Good idea.
Thank you.
See you guys out there.
Alrighty. Do we just go?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Any questions or anything I can help you with?
I don't think so.
Come up with some good ideas?
Yeah. We were scrolling through the PowerPoint.
Awesome. Good. All right, well, we'll meet back in the main room then. See you there.
Sounds good. Are we going now?
Sure.
Okay.
Say anything.
Hi guys.
Hello.
How's it going? Any questions or anything?
I don't think so.
All right. Come on back to the main room and we'll wrap up.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Oh. I give up.
You're really giving us the full tour, Lexi.
Yeah, this is entertaining.
Grace, where's that picture of your cat?
Okay, I'll show you. It's literally me when I was like 5 years old with it. Ready?
I love cats.
Wait, where are you?
I'm right here.
Oh my god.
His head is like is the size of yours.
I know. I literally got him for like my 5th birthday and I was so in love with him.
Aww.
Lexi, I don't want to see your face. I want to see the doggy.
Oh, Seamus wants attention.
You guys stinky breath.
Everyone in their.
Hi everybody. So I just
My
want
cat
to
has stinky
wrap up.
breath.
Oh gosh.
I heard some good ideas, I heard some pretty low-tech ideas, some high-tech ideas, but all all made sense. Hopefully, helped you take a look at the different things on the PowerPoint and the different ideas, and sort of thinking about how they can be used for a specific client. Does anybody have any questions or anything about what we talked about today? Anything coming up? All right. Bye, guys. Tuesday lab. I'll see you next week, Thursday.
Bye, everyone. Bye, guys. Seamus says bye.